why the WNBA, I mean, I will never understand. I feel like they fumbled so many things this season. They weren't ready for the moment. And this just...
Nobody saw this coming. Not the WNBA, not Angel Reese, not Brianna Stewart, not even the commissioner who thought she had control of the league's future. Nobody. Because when Caitlin Clark decided to rise, she didn't just rise, she erased every narrative that tried to bury her. This wasn't a comeback. This was a takeover disguised as silence. It started on a quiet morning when the sports world wasn't watching, when the same cameras that once zoomed in on every foul, every scowl, every shove she took had moved on to another headline. But somewhere in that silence, Caitlin Clark was sharpening her next move. And when it landed, it hit harder than any buzzer beater ever could. For months, she had been the punching bag of the WNBA's chaos. The golden rookie who brought record crowds, record ratings, and record money, yet received the least protection, the least respect, and the most hate. The league that should have built around her brilliance instead allowed her to be targeted, hacked, and humiliated on national television. All while pretending it was just rookie treatment. The fans saw it. The analysts whispered it. But the veterans, the same players who claimed to be advocates for equality, smirked when she hit the floor. Angel Reese's grin after another hard foul. Brianna Stewart's passive-aggressive comments about earning it the hard way. The subtle digs, the cold shoulders, the fake compliments. All of it built a storm that only Caitlin Clark could walk through. She didn't complain. She didn't beg for sympathy. She took it, the elbows, the headlines, the memes, and then vanished. No press conference. No post-game meltdown. Just gone. The media thought it was exhaustion. Her critics called it quitting. But those who paid attention noticed something different. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was focus. Because while the WNBA was busy tearing itself apart over jealousy and politics, Caitlin Clark was reinventing herself in a place nobody expected: the golf course. It began like a rumor. Caitlin Clark enters golf tournament. The headline sounded like satire. A basketball phenom, the scoring queen, the rookie of the year playing golf. Social media laughed. She's running away from the competition. She's done. Stick to basketball. But the thing about Caitlin Clark is that she doesn't follow scripts. She rewrites them. The moment that first clip surfaced, her in that clean white visor, her stance balanced, her swing laser precise, the laughter stopped. The form was perfect. The focus unshakable. She wasn't just dabbling. She was dominating. And suddenly, the same voices that mocked her were whispering again, but this time with disbelief. Every swing was poetry. Every follow-through carried the weight of every insult she'd ever endured. You could see it in her eyes, calm, cold, determined. She wasn't swinging at a ball. She was swinging at a league that tried to silence her. The LPGA, unlike the WNBA, recognized what they were witnessing. A generational competitor who could cross sports and still command a crowd. In one day, they gave her what the WNBA never did: respect. The LPGA rolled out red carpets, sponsorships, camera crews. They didn't question her worth. They celebrated it. And in that instant, it became clear the WNBA had fumbled the biggest opportunity in women's sports history. Because the truth, the raw, uncomfortable truth, was that jealousy, not competition, had driven the hate. Caitlin Clark wasn't just another rookie. She was the moment. She was the reason arenas sold out, jerseys vanished from shelves, and global audiences tuned in. The league needed her more than she needed the league. But instead of embracing her, they tried to humble her. They mistook humility for submission. They thought she'd fold. But she didn't fold. She evolved. And the moment she stepped onto that green course, every eye that had once looked down on her suddenly looked up again. Legends noticed. Nelly Korda, the face of modern golf, reportedly said she'd never seen a newcomer adjust that fast. Tiger Woods, ever the quiet observer, sent a personal message of encouragement. And somewhere inside Michael Jordan's private golf club, whispers spread, she's different. Because MJ recognized that fire, that relentless, silent, prove them wrong energy that doesn't come from fame. It comes from being doubted one too many times. Caitlin Clark wasn't escaping basketball. She was expanding her empire. And that's when the panic began. Behind closed doors, the WNBA's executives started realizing what they'd done. Sponsors called asking if Caitlin Clark was still under contract. Networks began questioning next season's ratings projections. Because if she stayed on that course, literally the WNBA's golden era would collapse before it even began. The fans followed her, not the league. Her jersey outsold entire franchises. Her name trended more than the playoffs. And now she was proving she didn't need the WNBA stage to command the spotlight. The irony. Everything the LPGA did in one day, the respect, the marketing, the collaboration was what the WNBA should have done all season. Protect your star. Promote your star. Partner with your star. Instead, they allowed petty rivalries and outdated hierarchies to poison the narrative. They allowed jealousy to masquerade as competition. They allowed the media to spin stories that divided instead of celebrated. So when Caitlin Clark showed up on that course, smiling, calm, powerful, it wasn't just a new chapter. It was a warning. Because this wasn't about golf. It was about control. The WNBA had spent months trying to control the story. Who gets the spotlight? Who gets the love? Who gets the narrative? But Caitlin Clark had taken that control back without saying a single word. She didn't need to tweet. She didn't need to clap back. Her revenge was visual, swing after swing, headline after headline. As the sports world shifted its gaze from the hardwood to the fairway, the LPGA saw the future. The WNBA watched its mistakes unfold in real time. And when Caitlin Clark's first tournament results hit, history happened. Not just a win, not just a fluke, but a record-breaking performance that shattered expectations and made the entire sports world stop. The commentators couldn't believe it. How is she doing this? The crowd went wild. Nelly Corda laughed in disbelief. And millions of fans watching from their phones, their TVs, their laptops, they knew. This was what greatness looks like when you try to bury it. It grows roots somewhere else and rises stronger. Meanwhile, back in WNBA circles, silence. No congratulations from Angel Reese. No acknowledgement from Brianna Stewart. No proud statement from Commissioner Engelbert. The same voices that demanded support women's sports suddenly forgot how to support the woman who was carrying them all. Because the truth was painful. Caitlin Clark had made the WNBA irrelevant without saying a word. Her silence was louder than their speeches. Her composure was stronger than their excuses. Every swing she took became a metaphor for her journey, controlled, deliberate, beautiful. You could feel the symbolism. The same poise she had when crowds booed her, when players taunted her, when refs swallowed whistles, it was still there. But now, it came with peace. Golf gave her the calm that basketball chaos had stolen. And in that calm, she rediscovered her power. Because Caitlin Clark's story isn't just about sports. It's about what happens when a system underestimates the very person keeping it alive. The WNBA thought they could humble her. Instead, they handed her the motivation to build something greater. They made her the villain in their story, but she turned herself into the hero of her own. Every critic who said she can't handle physicality was now watching her handle the pressure of an entirely new sport, gracefully. Every analyst who said she's overrated was now witnessing her outperform expectations again. This time, outside the lines they'd drawn for her. The LPGA crowd loved her instantly. They cheered her name not because of controversy, but because of character. Her interviews were pure authenticity, grateful, humble, but quietly confident. "I'm just an average golfer," she said with a smile, knowing full well the world was hanging on every word. She wasn't trying to prove anything, and that's why she proved everything. And when she looked into the camera and said softly, "I don't compete to prove them wrong. I compete to prove myself right," the world froze. That single line carried more power than 1,000 press conferences. It wasn't arrogance. It was truth. Because deep down, that's what had always separated Caitlin Clark from everyone else. Her belief wasn't built on approval. It was built on purpose. The same players who mocked her now had to watch her redefine success on her own terms. The same league that ignored her now had to watch her outgrow them. And the same fans who once doubted her were now defending her with the same passion she inspired on the court. That's not just redemption, that's evolution. Caitlin Clark didn't need revenge through words. She found it through peace. She didn't clap back. She outperformed. She didn't fight fire with fire. She replaced it with light. And that's what breaks her critics the most. Because how do you hate someone who refuses to hate you back, yet keeps winning? How do you compete with someone who isn't competing against you, but against her own limits? As she walked off that course, cameras flashing, fans cheering, the world realized something the WNBA still hadn't. You can't silence greatness. You can only delay it. Caitlin Clark's silence was the loudest roar women's sports had ever heard. Silence was the loudest roar women's sports had ever heard. It started with whispers, but it ended in panic. The moment Caitlin Clark's golf highlights went viral, sports industry shifted like an earthquake under the WNBA's foundation. Every shot, every slow motion replay, every fan screaming her name on the fairway wasn't just a highlight, it was a headline. That hit the league right in the heart. What began as an experiment became a movement. And suddenly, all those who laughed at her, the veterans who rolled their eyes, the execs who underestimated her, the media voices who questioned her toughness were forced to watch as she made history without ever touching a basketball. Behind the scenes, the fallout was brutal. Sponsorship meetings turned into damage control sessions. Executives argued in closed-door meetings about how to fix the Caitlin problem. Some said we have to bring her back. Others admitted she's already outgrown us. For years, the WNBA dreamed of global relevance. Crossover stars who could transcend the sport. And then when they finally had one, they failed to protect her. They failed to understand that greatness doesn't just bring numbers. It brings revolution. Caitlin Clark didn't just play basketball. She reshaped it. And now, she was reshaping golf. The irony was poetic. The same reporters who once mocked her rookie struggles were now rushing to cover her every swing. ESPN ran segments about her mental toughness. Golf Digest called her the most captivating new name in sports. Even brands that once stayed neutral suddenly wanted in Nike, Gatorade, Rolex lining up with offers that made her the most marketable female athlete on earth. The WNBA had lost its crown, jewel, not because she left, but because they pushed her to a place where she no longer needed them. And that's what broke the silence. Angel Reese, once loud and confident on social media, went uncharacteristically quiet. Brianna Stewart, the supposed veteran leader, refused to comment when reporters asked about Caitlin's success. Even Kathy Engelbert, who once promised that the league would build its future on its young stars, was nowhere to be found. The same league that demanded unity couldn't handle what unity under one name actually looked like. Caitlin Clark had become too big for them to control, and that terrified them. Because now, the conversation had flipped. Fans weren't asking if Caitlin would come back. They were asking, why should she? Why should she return to a league that ignored her, mocked her, and failed to protect her? Why return to a system that valued ego over excellence? For the first time in WNBA history, fans weren't defending the league, they were defending the player against the league. That's how powerful Caitlin's rise had become. She wasn't just a player anymore. She was a movement. And that movement was global. Videos of her golf swing racked up millions of views in hours. Clips of her humble interviews trended in countries that barely followed women's basketball. Young girls from Iowa to Indonesia began posting videos copying her pre-swing focus. The hashtag Caitlin Clark effect exploded again. But this time, not on hardwood highlights, but on pristine greens and golden sunsets. The world was watching something rare. An athlete crossing worlds and still dominating both. Meanwhile, the LPGA couldn't believe their luck. They had opened the door to a crossover event, expecting buzz, but what they got was a cultural storm. Ticket sales doubled. Broadcast ratings shattered decade-long records. Merchandise with Caitlyn's name sold faster than any player in LPGA history. And most importantly, the tone shifted. It wasn't just golf fans tuning in. It was everyone. NBA fans, WNBA fans, casual sports fans, all united by one story. The woman who refused to be broken. And Caitlyn. She wasn't playing for attention. She was playing for peace. You could see it in her demeanor. No tension, no resentment, just joy. The kind of joy that comes when you finally take your story back from those who tried to control it. During post-tournament interviews, when asked about the WNBA drama, she simply smiled and said, "I'm grateful for everything basketball gave me, but I'm also grateful for what life gives me now. No bitterness, no shade, just truth." That was her power. She didn't need to fight. She just needed to keep shining. But make no mistake, her success sent shockwaves. Players began privately messaging her, asking how she made the transition. Sponsors quietly distanced themselves from the WNBA, shifting budgets toward the LPGA crossover coverage. Even college recruits began mentioning Caitlyn's name as their role model, not just for basketball, but for resilience. She had changed what it meant to be an athlete. She proved you could be graceful and fierce, humble and unstoppable, all at once. And while she was building peace, the WNBA was unraveling. Locker rooms grew tense. Star players who once dominated headlines saw their mentions drop. Media coverage shifted away from the league's usual drama because now there was a new story. One that made fans feel inspired again. Every day that Caitlyn Clark stayed away, the WNBA's numbers dipped further. Viewership dropped. Sponsors hesitated. And the league's leadership realized what they should have known all along. You can't build a future by tearing down your brightest star. It wasn't just about losing Caitlyn Clark, the player. It was about losing Caitlyn Clark, the symbol. She represented hope, growth, possibility, all the things the WNBA claimed to stand for. But instead of uplifting her, they treated her like a threat. And now, the price was being paid in silence. Because when your audience stops caring, that's when your empire truly crumbles. Meanwhile, Caitlyn was building her own empire quietly, strategically, brilliantly. She wasn't signing random deals. She was crafting a legacy. She teamed up with top brands that aligned with her message, not just performance, but purpose. Training lines, mentorship programs, scholarships for young athletes. Caitlyn wasn't chasing headlines. She was creating history. Every move she made was intentional, rooted in the same mindset that made her a generational player. And then came the moment that made the entire sports world pause again. The LPGA announced its newest Pro-Am lineup, and right there, alongside legends and champions, was Caitlyn Clark, the same girl who was once rookie for WNBA. Respect was now standing shoulder to shoulder with global icons. When the news broke, social media went nuclear. She's really doing it. She's rewriting sports. She's what every athlete should be. Even those who once criticized her couldn't help but admire the transformation. Reporters began calling her the silent storm, because she didn't argue. She acted. She didn't rant. She delivered. And every performance, every smile, every composed interview made her narrative stronger. Her story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about evolution. The girl they tried to break had become the woman who couldn't be contained. Behind the curtain, even the biggest critics began to shift. Some WNBA veterans privately admitted they respected her more now than ever. They saw the weight she carried, the unfair treatment she endured, and how she still rose with class. She's different. One player was overheard saying, "She plays for something bigger than all of us." And that's what separated Caitlyn from the noise. She didn't play for clout. She played for cause. Her presence started influencing other leagues too. Tennis stars mentioned her work ethic. Soccer players compared her crossover power to Serena's cultural reach. Even NBA legends began commenting publicly on her resilience. Shaquille O'Neal called her a generational force. Steph Curry said, "She's got the mindset of a killer and the soul of a leader." The respect that the WNBA refused to give, the world gave tenfold. And through it all, Caitlyn remained grounded. When asked how she stays focused amid all the attention, she smiled and said, "Because I know where I started."